Hi, I'm Nate, and you're watching Photolearningism. This is a very special episode I wanted to get to, hailing back to 1999 to look at a very special product called glTIP that had really pioneered and provided some groundbreaking technology for motion compositing, particularly with 3D space, long before Adobe and After Effects and all that had even attempted to play with this. It still has value, I think, today, even though it is a little rocky because it was written for Windows 95, I think. So let's try it out and see what happens. Okay, so once again, my name is Nate. This is Photolearningism. Thank you so much for joining in. I do a lot of work on this channel to surface the cheap or free art technologies so that you can know about them and so we can help each other grow stronger in our knowledge of the artistic tools that are available to you. We do a lot of work here to bring out really any kind of art technology we can surface. A lot of it is open source, but we do comparisons with commercial products here and there. We look at photo editors, non-linear video editors, screen capture tools, among many other things. So I invite you to go back and check those out. Thank you so much for checking out this special legacy episode for glTIP. So digging into this, I was so thrilled that I could actually go back and found this because I used this tool way back 10 years ago. I used this and the technology was so groundbreaking, and I feel like it is still so impressive, especially when you consider that this was written in an age where the idea of 3D space, especially motion compositing in 3D space, was like unheard of. This was so groundbreaking. So this gentleman by the name of Nelson Chu wrote this freeware product. Remember freeware? Freeware product called glTIP. And I'll have a link in the description to where I found it. It's still out there, and there's a guide which I'll also point you to on how to use it. But it is the idea of motion compositing in 3D using an image, using alpha mats to extrapolate details from the image and create animations based on that. This is like wow type stuff coming from where it was back in 1999. It's simply amazing that somebody conceived of this way back then. So now that I've talked it up enough, let's actually check it out. Now, keeping in mind, again, this was written for, I believe, the days of Windows 95, 98. It's going to be a little hard to figure out, so I'll do my best to translate what I had to figure out along the way. It wasn't quite clear. As you fire things up, first thing you have to do is you have to begin a new project. All right? I'm just going to drag this over here. This is somewhat kind of a wizard idea along the left here of what you need, so kind of look at it with that in mind. Original picture is what you intend to work with, and you have to use the loader here to do it. And also, I should mention this. After you put it in, Windows 10, if you're using that, attempts to set it up with a compatibility mode, which you actually need to turn off, I found. Reason being, that's over here, make sure you uncheck this. You want it to actually run under the Windows 10 environment. Any other emulation mode it tries, it crashes when you try to export. And I think it's just that, keep in mind this is so old. It has to be running under the Windows 10 framework in order to survive the process. So do that. Now, bringing us back into the software. So use the selector. The drag in no longer works. Again, that's based on technology that is just old and done. So use the file selector. I'm going to use this image here, which you may have seen on my Instagram if you follow. This is just kind of a good basic idea that we can see how this is going to work. The object mask, you can select that. This is going to be the alpha that you made. I made a very simple idea here. There's other areas I could have highlighted with this, but it'll prove the concept out so you can see. You essentially just need to make a mask. You need to make an alpha mask of what you want to pop up. We're making layers essentially with this. So pull that in. And the background, I don't think it's required, but I usually just like to have something. And I'll be honest with you, the background, I haven't quite made that work, and that could just be that, again, we're bringing this so far into technology it wasn't designed to run on that it may not actually work, but, you know, we're going to get the most out of it that we can. So those are all set up. We did all three. Click our way down here to step 2. I'll be honest with you, sub-scenes here, I have not figured out what that actually is. Zoom in a little bit here. This looks like a way of like sectioning off the screen, but again, I haven't quite translated how it is, and the instructions don't really talk about it, so I don't really know what that is. So you can play with it. Please do let me know if you figure it out. This is the really cool part, because now we are actually creating a sense of depth about this picture. We can manipulate the points here. Oh, it's actually already checked off. We don't want to do that. We can manipulate where the scale will be. We can drag in and out about how deep, how far, what the depth of field is here. That's really awesome. You can adjust the shape of the geometry, and then you can actually take the perspective and adjust that too, so you can figure out where you're actually looking. This is wild. And then as a last step, this is where the alpha really comes into play, is you use this button down here, and you can have it auto-detect. Click extract here. It will attempt to auto-detect where are the things that need to pop, the things that need to have a layer in depth. So we do that. It flags those for me. Really awesome. That's everything we need to do here. Except, I'm sorry, I forgot to put a check mark here. It's very important. We have to check done, that we've marked the perspective as we want it. So into settings, camera settings. Okay, so at this step, what I like to do, what actually I guess you have to do, is you should save the project at this point. So we're going to make this and animate 2, because I tried this out just to make sure it actually worked. So we're going to create a project, and this button down here kind of pre-renders what you're working on, the green button. So we're going to do that. This is our starting plane. Up here we have the animation timeline. This is, again, really, really neat. You have a couple of basic controls. The frames per second, how many frames per second you want to play back at. The frames per keyframe, and that comes into play depending on how many keyframes you are going to generate. The range of animation here. And the step, I think, has something also to do with the amount of frames per step that are taking place. But again, I'm not quite clear on that. The instructions don't really talk about it. So I've played around with that, couldn't really see any difference. So I'm leaving that as it is for now. So what I am going to do here is, it looks like I had played around with this previously and left some keyframes in there. So I'm going to start at frame 1. I'm going to leave it where it is and record it. Frame 2, I'm going to move this around a little bit, and you can already see how it's moving based on that field, that depth of field that I created before. This up here, this kind of ghosted image, that is actually what's being picked up by the alpha. It's generating an object in a layer based on that, and it would be a little more awesome if the background was there. Unfortunately, it's not. But you can actually see what this is doing for you, is that it's making 3D layers, which is really awesome. So frame 2, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to record it. I'm going to add another keyframe and step us up to that. And let's just say I want this to head up there and record that. All right. Important step next is we have to save our motion path, because without that it actually won't export anything. The software doesn't really know what to do with the file. So I'm going to save that. So again, we've saved the project, and separately we've saved the animation path. They're separate things in this software. Okay, we can kind of see what we're doing if I click through my keyframes, and right now it looks choppy, but they're keyframes. It's actually going to generate the in-between, which is really cool. All right. That's really, as a high level, what we need to do. And then output, and we can kind of do a quick inspection here of what it looks like. This number, it seems to kind of pick what it feels like in the moment. They could be played with. I haven't really, but they're there. The width and height. Data size, the length will be governed based on the frames per second and how many frames you actually have to work with. So it kind of gives you a rough estimate of that. This is important to note, that the number of keyframes and just make sure that all of this actually has some length, because again, if you don't save your motion path, you'll look in here and some of these values may be 0 because it doesn't really have anything to tie back to. So saving the animation path really is important to that to help it continue. And really from here, all we need to do is output the movie. I'm going to run another test here. I've done a few. And save it. I've been doing uncompressed. That seems to work okay. Windows 10. And then it's actually going to go through and generate this, which is really neat. So now that we've done that, I'm going to take a look here. And let's see what we have concocted. There we go. And you can kind of get the gist of what happened here, is that we have a 3D plane. The images and the layers were mapped against that, and the perspective is generating, again, all based on what we set up in our file. So it's pretty cool technology. Probably not the most efficient thing, and there are a lot of quirks using this, so I'll caution you if you try this out. But at the same time, it can give you some new ideas leaping into these new tools and things that are out there, like After Effects and things like Natron, that are starting to embrace this kind of idea of meshing image compositing into 3D space. So could be very interesting just to play around with and at least get some ideas. And if you're up for retro, it's a good way to do that. So again, this is glTIP. I'll put some links in the description if you want to play around and try this out and really kind of see what was back in the day. There really is some interesting stuff here, and really even some interesting stuff to be had coming out of it if you can get it to work. There's a lot of quirks. All right, I'm Nate. This is Photolearningism. This has been fun. Thank you so much for watching. If it was helpful and informative and gave you some ideas, please give me a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on the awesome projects that are coming up in the future. I really appreciate you spending your time with me and getting this far in the video. Please don't hesitate to join the conversation and leave a comment. Ask a question. If you know of a product that does this today, especially open source, because we like to focus on that, let us know. Give us a shout out in the comments, and I would love to check it out and even make a video on it and highlight some of that value and let everybody know about it. So thank you so much. We'll see you at the next video.